Welcome to the Beats and Balance podcast, where healing, culture, and creative survival meet. With your host, Tenora, founder of Beats and Balance, a platform and community centering Black women and QT BIPOC voices. Each episode features conversations with artists, healers, and everyday people who use creativity to survive and find liberation through community.
All right. What's up, y'all? Welcome to the Beats and Balance podcast. Today's guest is someone whose journey embodies everything this podcast is about: transformation, purpose, and creative survival. DeUnna Hendrix is a former Division I head coach turned consultant, life coach, and vibe curator. She leads with heart and strategy by guiding Black millennial women through life transitions and curating spaces that center holistic wellness. Through her platform, Hendricks to Why Coaching, she walks two powerful paths: one focused on transformational sports leadership through an intergenerational lens, and the other, Soothe by Hendricks to Why, a wellness ecosystem where music becomes a tool for growth, healing, and self-discovery. She's bringing deep wisdom from her years in high-level athletics, combined with a grounded spiritual approach to leadership and care. DeUnna, I'm so glad to have you here, and let's get into it. Tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you want people to know?
Yeah, you did a pretty good job introducing that, so I appreciate that. I appreciate the time and the space. Yeah, no, it's good. I think we'll get into it. I think for the most part, you covered a lot of it. I coached college basketball for 16 years. I was the head coach for 11 of two different programs. And yeah, it's been a journey the last 2.5 years of figuring out this new path. So it's been fun, beautiful, hard, all the things all at once.
Yeah. So tell people, what has it been like for you making that transition from a Division I coach? Obviously is a very high pace, fast paced career, and also very kind of corporate. Like anybody that knows anything about academia is run very much like a corporate business. And so I'm assuming, I played high school sports. I didn't play anything in college, but I'm assuming it's a very structured environment. So how is it going from that to doing your own thing, becoming an entrepreneur, kind of creating your own rules? Not having to rely on that structure so much, but also not having that structure. So you really have to do your own thing.
Yeah, no, really good question. I wish I could say this whole path to entrepreneurship was my choice and I stepped out on faith boldly and all those things. That was not the case for me. What was the case is, I'm so glad you introed like that. Athletics is very much corporate. It is super fast paced. For me, I got a head coaching job at 26, and so super young.
Yeah.
And everything got really heavy really fast. I moved back to the Midwest and the burden was heavy. And so made a ton of mistakes. My last 2 years of coaching specifically, one that led to public embarrassment, a whole scandal. And so was forced to resign. The universe does this crazy thing though, it returns you back to yourself. But even if that's at the expense of diminishing everything that you thought you were. And so literally there was destruction of everything I thought I was. And here I am in entrepreneurship, figuring out who I really am and honing in on the values that I always held. It's just operating at a different pace. So I'm still adjusting. I love everything about what I'm doing right now. It's just taking me some time to recalibrate my nervous system a little bit.
No, I feel that for sure. I think that's something that happens though a lot, especially when you're kind of following a path that, like you said, the universe kind of throws you on. For me, this whole thing started from great loss. My wife passed away. I was at a job that was exploiting the fact that my wife was sick, and then exploited the fact that she passed away. And at that point, when I didn't need the health insurance anymore, I was like, oh no, you're not going to disrespect me. So I just, quit and here we are. You know what I mean? Started this. So I understand different circumstance, but still having to transform and alchemize something from pain. I can imagine going through something so public can definitely take a toll on your mental health and just put you in a spiral. So how did you bounce back? How were you able to come up with this idea? Did you rely on the tools that helped you to heal from the situation you were in, or were you doing stuff like this before?
I thought I was, even in my coaching methods, I was, implementing mindfulness and meditation practices into practice, which was super nuanced. If you know anything about athletics, that's not normal. And so I thought I was, but what I didn't know is that there were a lot of issues that I didn't have the tools for, that I just internally didn't even know I was battling, a lot of unresolved stuff. And so through the course of therapy, and I was at the time going through executive coach training, so just learning some different tools in that program, the biggest thing for me is realizing that I thought I had community. You know, you get thrown on a team and that's your quote unquote family, and you're just always
Mm-hmm.
entering spaces in athletics with a new family. But I didn't have it. You know, I didn't have connection. I didn't have community, and so how Soothe really started was getting my quote unquote friends and their friends in a room, and I was doing like paint and sips and all the things just to get my mental right. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, can we do the same virtually? At the time, my friends were asking for playlists, and music was sort of the thing that helped me with emotion because I didn't really even have a language for it. Like, I just knew happy, sad, mad. Like, that was the extent of my emotions. So, music was sort of what got me to a place of like being able to articulate,
Mm-hmm.
to feel a little bit, and do that amongst others. And so it's
Very cool.
evolved probably 3 or 4 different ways by now, but that's sort of how it all started.
Very cool. And I've seen you on your Instagram with the DJ deck.
Mm.
How is that? I'm also a DJ, so that was like when we don't, for people that are listening to this, we don't know each other. It's the first time we've met, but I saw your page through Beats and Balance, I think, and I was just intrigued by like seeing the mix of the DJing and the
Mm.
not therapy, but coaching, life coaching. That's something that I do just in my everyday life, and that's kind of how Beats and Balance was born. Because I was like, I don't want to do what other people want me to do anymore. I just want to do what I'm passionate about. And how can I
Yeah.
like bring all these different, I've had tons of different jobs in all kinds of different fields. So it's like, how can I marry all these things together and just do what I want to do? And it sounds like that's something similar to what you did. So tell me about your DJing. How did you get into that? Were you doing that when you were coaching? Did you get into that after coaching? How do you
Yeah,
have
yeah, yeah.
time to do all these things? Because being an athlete is like a full-time job.
Yeah, no, all good questions. And no, we don't know each other, but we will after this. We're gonna be friends.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure.
Because all of these things are true. Yeah, no, I always wanted to do it, like long road trips, you're listening to podcasts and music all the time. And so I've always had a passion for music, but obviously never had the time. So basketball always went before it. But my coaching friends would always ask for songs and playlists or D what's out now. And I'm like, I'm just gonna get a board. Like, let me just get a controller and start playing around. Like, it was a way of being creative.
Hmm.
So even basketball, the X's and O's piece of it has always been art to me. Like it's very much art and poetry and motion and all those things. And so is music. And so I'm like, let me just start mixing some stuff, have some fun with it. I listen to everything. People say that, but I really do.
Yeah.
So yeah, I picked it up just sort of in the in between. I took a year off. When I say I lost everything, I lost everything. I went through losing my dad. I lost my first home, my first car to engine failure, like literally everything.
Mm.
And so I'm like, let me just play, let me just do what I've always wanted to do and get back to, my inner child, what they say, but truly. And so everything's just sort of manifested itself at this point.
Very dope. Yeah, I feel like
Mm.
unfortunately life has a way of doing that for myself and other people I know where it's just like when it rains, it pours, and it's like, oh, everything is now. You know what I mean? Like everything. I went
Yeah.
through that when I was in my early 20s. Like my grandparents died like one, two, three every 6 months. And my grandparents were the
Oh
ones who raised me.
man.
So that was like my parents dying. And that was my first like pre-midlife crisis where the world collapsed and I had to like pick myself up. But in hindsight, and I feel like I'm going through that now again. It's like the universe is testing me. It's like, oh, this is the second time. How are you gonna handle it this time? The first time, funny enough, I was a journalist for a music magazine, but I was like 21, 22 in New York City acting crazy. And then everything got snatched away. Like, and it was just downhill from there. And I brought myself back, and now it's like, all right, similar type of collapse where I'm faced with death. Before my wife passed, my uncle overdosed. And it's like, all right, you're going to do what you did last time and like run the streets and act crazy and avoid everything, or you're going to sit with yourself. And it's been like almost a year now of just like isolation, building this business in my apartment, hang out with my dogs and being like, yeah, no distractions, no alcohol, no, whatever.
Yeah.
And I think that's tough to do. Like, I think a lot of people don't realize how easy it is to distract yourself, but that distraction will lead you right back to circling to the place that you don't want to be.
Man, it's beautiful.
Yeah, like I feel like life is real cyclical like that. Like, and once you can see it, that's when you can step off, the
Yeah.
Ferris wheel. But
Yeah.
until then, you're kind of like stuck in these cycles. I know for a lot of Black people, there's a lot of talk about generational curses and generational trauma. And so
Hmm.
these cycles are generations deep. So for you, what was your, I guess, moment of clarity where you're like, all right, like I'm going to take this deep depressing time in my life where you're facing so much loss professionally, personally, and kind of not let it break you, but you
Yeah.
use the moment to create good for other people. And I think that's something that's kind of unique and special, where it was like, it could be easy to start something and do something different, but it's a different level when it's like, you're going to take that pain and use it to create something good for other people too.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. You know, for me, I think I moved back home. I cannot stand the Midwest. It comes with so many different challenges. There was a reason why I left it, you know, and so just moving back home was hard, especially after what happened, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and my family, I love them. We have a lot of mending to do, and I think we're working on that. But that wasn't easy either, you know what I'm saying? So it's literally losing all the things, but also trying to find myself in what I thought was established prior to, and that also wasn't a thing, you know? So it's just you feel like you're in the middle of the ocean looking around, like I don't know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
But in that, you know, I was just like just hell bent on finding the beauty. And so I would take these long walks and I would just literally get curious and look at nature. And people say that, but it takes a different strength to do that when you're in that low place.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a different amount of mindfulness to do that and be where you are and be present. And then with that, I was able to see, okay, there's other people hurting too. You know, let me not be egocentric in this because that was so much of athletics. And I'm like, I get to be whoever I want to be now. You know, I get to do
Mm-hmm.
however I want to do this now. And so it was really important to me to say, one, let me articulate what I'm going through. And what I heard from my friend group was you've gotten softer. And as an
Mm-hmm.
athlete, you know, that's almost you might as well cuss me out.
It's an
Like
insult.
that's almost an insult. You know what I'm saying? I'm offended. But for whatever reason, it hit me so different this time. You know, I'm like, well, let me do that. Let me learn how to do that because I hadn't done that well.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think amongst the softness, I don't know. I think there's a genuineness to that. I got to be authentic, and the people that showed up, I enjoyed. So it's definitely a different feel.
There we go. That hits deep. For me too, like a lot of time was just spent in nature, just with the trees and
Hmm.
reflecting and being still. And I think a lot of people don't realize, but like the way our society is set up, you have so much distraction all the time. And it's set up that way. Like they want you to stay distracted, stay busy, work and grind and stuff like that. But when you spend time in silence and you have to sit with yourself like that can be really painful and really scary because most of our life we're avoiding ourselves.
Yeah.
So, you know, especially when you're going through something, you know, it's one thing to be like, everything is chill and I'm at the park and I'm hanging around. And it's another thing to be like, damn, my life just fell apart. And I'm going to sit
Yeah.
with that and figure
Yeah.
out like, how did I mess up? Because it's not, you
Yeah.
know, it's easy to become a victim in those kind of
Yeah.
situations.
Yeah.
But it takes a real type of person to be like, all right, like, let me get my life figured out. And then also like, let me use that to create a pathway to show people like, you can do this too,
Yeah.
which I think is extra important and special because I think, you know, the reason I started this podcast is like one of the things I think we're all missing out on or wishing we had more of is connection.
Yeah.
And I think we all have a lot more in common than we think. Hearing you talk about your journey, I'm like, damn, like this sounds like me. I'm from upstate New York, so the Midwest is a similar kind of vibe. Like
Okay.
I
Yeah.
moved back home as an adult for the first time and was like, oh, like it's like down south up here.
Right.
Yeah, so I definitely feel that. But sometimes it's needed. Sometimes you got to go back home and face stuff and sit with yourself and be bored. So
Hmm.
definitely applaud that. That's super dope. All right, so what are some reoccurring themes or challenges that you see in the lives of the women that you coach? And what are some of the tools that you use to support them?
Yeah, no, really good question. I will say this. I work primarily with Black women.
Hmm.
I love and can't stand us at the same time. And this is why. This is
No,
why.
I
Let
feel
me.
that deeply.
Yeah, I think the reoccurring themes are we struggle, and this is obviously a generalization, but we struggle with knowing who we are outside of our role, you know, and I say that because I understand the pressures that are put on us, the roles that we are put in. And so I respect that. But I think when it comes to prioritizing ourselves, to taking care of ourselves, to being good to one another, you know, and seeing somebody as worthy and of respect and all those things, there's a struggle with that. We don't want to be told to rest. I don't think our nervous system knows how to. And so we have to like
Hmm.
train that. And rest can mean a lot of different things, but just prioritizing ourselves is really, really hard to get Black women to understand. But Beyond that, I think ego is thrown around a lot, but when I use ego, it's more so the putting yourself in a spot where you're not praised, you're not relied upon, and can you be in those spaces in relation to others without constantly measuring yourself up against what you should be doing and how they are viewing you. You know what I'm saying? Like really
Mm-hmm.
digging deep into who you are and who you want to be and having no shame or guilt with that. Those are some mental blocks right now, and I think a lot of it is doing the work of, well, who do you want to be? If nobody mattered, if nobody had an opinion, what does your days look like? What does your life look like? How do we do that? Because it's possible.
Mm-hmm.
So really just eliminating all the other thing. Anytime they go into, I'm a sister, I'm a mother, yes, you are. And then who are you?
Yeah.
Singularly. So it's taking some work.
Yeah, I think that's you. I mean, I as a black woman raised by black women who deeply loves black women, but has also been deeply traumatized by black women, I
Yes.
would say that black women are the most traumatized folks I think that I've come across. And there is legitimate, real reasons for that, but the
Hmm.
cycle of pain kind of continues. And so it can be really deeply difficult to work in and with folks that you have that kind of like personal relationship with. And so like that's for
Yeah.
something I for sure applaud because it's not easy work and there's a lot of triggers that come up with you, with the other person, shared histories, generalizations. Black people have like so much of a common history, but then we're also so different
Yeah.
and such like a unique group of individuals really, but then with the same kind of struggles where we have so much placed on us and we're expected to perform, be perfect, show no fear, show no pain, smile but
Hmm.
don't smile, be sexy but don't be sexy, be feminine but
Yeah.
you're masculinized. So it's like you can't win kind of either way, and I feel like holding space for all of that is wildly difficult. So I definitely
Yeah.
applaud you for that.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. So let's talk about, you have two separate situations. You have the Soothe by Hendricks, and then you have the Hendricks X to Y coaching.
Yeah.
So what are the difference between those two? And like talk a little bit about what you offer so people know how they can link up with you, reach out to you, and get some support.
I appreciate that. So, Hendricks to White coaching is the overarching. And so, really, that started with just the athletics background. So now I'm coaching coaches.
Mm-hmm.
If you're paying attention, a lot of mental health narrative is for the athlete, and we still have a long way to go there, but there's very little for coaches. There are a lot of
Mm-hmm.
reasons for that, but the support for coaches isn't there. And so, what I do is help coaches, help administrators, hopefully eventually help full staffs in athletic departments on just program management, people management. But what I do is I'm looking at it from a generational lens. And so a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the friction right now amongst staffs is there's all these issues with Gen Z, or this is the first time that we've had 4 or 5 generations in one workplace. The boomers are, a little outdated with technology and those type of things. So I'm looking at, okay, what is our communication preferences? What are the biases we hold? How do we almost flatten the hierarchy? So right now it's a top-down hierarchy in a lot of places. How do we
Mm-hmm.
flatten it to where everybody brings value? So from a leadership standpoint, it just cleans up, how are you doing things and why? But it caters to everyone, whether you be a 21-year-old or the 60-year-old veteran.
There you go.
So that's a little bit of Hendrix to why. Soothe is a musical arm of the business, and so anything that deals with music. So when you mentioned DJing earlier, I'm not trying to be in nobody's wedding. I'm not trying to be in
I feel
nobody's
you.
club. That's not really my thing. But anything from art galleries to wellness spaces, belonging spaces, coffee shops, I'm all for. So the soothe element is the DJ sets in there, the curated playlist just to get through some healing, to bring nostalgia, to bring joy. And then obviously the bridge is a new offer. Well, I'm calling it a new offer. It's actually how it originated, but it's more of a coaching aspect with some programming
Mm-hmm.
for Black millennial women. So going through transition, more life coaching through those tough transitions. So that's the very brief summary.
Very cool. And that's like a group.
Yeah, it's a group. I'm gonna cap it at 10. So it
Okay.
starts August 14th. And it runs for 6 months. So it's 2 times a month on Thursdays.
Very
And
dope.
basically one session is gonna act as a listening lounge. So I put together, for example, our first session is gonna be on belief systems, so our foundations. So the playlist for that is gonna be like 90s throwback. Just
Very dope.
talk about the stories around those songs and what were we doing in those moments. Well, then the second session of that month is going to talk through how did we get to our foundational beliefs? Where do we learn these things? Where do we hear these things?
Oh, dope.
And so over 6 months, just taking us through a journey of how do we get to expansion ultimately and who we want to be and who we're becoming.
Very, very, very
Um,
cool. I love that. It's
yeah.
like a music history aspect plus your own. I mean, when you talk about like inner child healing before, like for me, music and healing and trauma and all that is so intertwined. Like when I hear a song, I can instantly be like, oh, I remember
Yep.
where I was the first time I heard that song and what was happening and who was fighting or if it was a good time or a bad time or whatever.
Yep. Yep.
So just hearing you talk about that, I'm like, oh, I could see how that could be super healing for like your inner child. And even like just going back to places that you might have forgotten, but somatically being able to feel that and work through that. So that's a super, super, super cool offering.
Thank you.
Yeah, for
It's
sure.
supposed to be
Hopefully.
super like non-intimidating too, like we're just
Yeah.
vibing, literally just in conversation. And a lot of it, the first session at least is through chat. And so I'm posing these questions, but if a song comes up, we're laughing, we're bringing joy and laughter into it too. And so I think especially with Black women, it's just so hard to get in the door that music is sort of the entry.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you
Yeah.
talked about before, like a lot of people have issues, Black women, but not, not exclusive Black women, but Black women particularly because of the burdens and things that we have. It can be really hard to access those emotions. You spend a lot of your time
Mm,
bearing, or working, and you're not able to even process because you're just busy.
right.
And so having that intentional space, but also I feel like that is super non-threatening because like for me, for example, like I used to hate yoga because it's just like yoga forces you to be in your body, to sit in silence and and it's like as somebody who has trauma, you don't want to do that. That's the most uncomfortable thing in the world. But if you're like, oh, come sit with me in a listening lounge and like we're going to listen to some old songs and they start bringing up memories and I'm, still having that process without knowing that I'm having that process, then I feel like that opens the gateway for a lot of
Mhm.
people that would not have thought about doing that experience or wouldn't have thought about like the benefits to doing that experience. So that's super, super cool.
Appreciate that.
And definitely the type of stuff that we're trying to do at Beats and Balance. So we got to definitely collab
Yeah,
um,
yeah, for sure.
for sure in the future. All right. Let me know. Is there anything else that you would like to plug, talk about?
I think the bridge is just the biggest thing because I really do think it could be beneficial to a lot of people. And so, like I said, it's starting on August 14th. When people ask about time commitment, it's an hour. If like you listen to a podcast, an hour goes fast. So, yeah, the bridge is the biggest thing. Outside of that, I mean, I think my IG, I just started it. So,
Yeah.
I'm 40. I turned 40 last year. And so I'm like, this whole IG thing wasn't originally for me, but we're having fun with it now. So you could probably catch me there too.
Tell the people your IG.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Soothe by Hendricks. So it's pretty easy.
Soothe by Hendricks. And then the website is
HendricksandYcoaching.com. Yep.
all right. So hendrickscoaching.com and Soothe by Hendricks on Instagram. And you're going to be starting mid-August for the group capped at 10. So everybody, please sign up. We're definitely going to get this pushed out before then so that people can hear about it. And hopefully it won't be booked by the time this drops.
Appreciate that.
But if it is, then, hopefully there'll be a part two that people can sign up for waiting lists.
For sure.
And I'll definitely look into that. Because that sounds like super dope. I want to join.
Thank you. I appreciate
So
that. Yeah,
thank
come
you.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, wait a minute. Let me sign up
Yeah.
before it gets sold out. Yeah, very dope. I think that's awesome. Thank you so much for coming on here, for agreeing to do this. A lot of people like signed up for this podcast. I think you're the only person actually that I reached out to and was like, hey, do you want to be on it?
Wow.
Yeah, besides the people that like were with me when I started this group that we had our little like how did this start meeting. But yeah, I saw what you
Amazing.
were doing and I thought that was super dope. I didn't know anything about you. I didn't know anything about the D1 coaching or any of that stuff. So I was like, oh,
Wow.
like thank you for saying yes. Like you got a Wikipedia out here, like you a real person in these streets. I just saw your IG and was like, oh, this is dope. So definitely appreciate you coming out here. Definitely want to collab in the future. Any way that we can support, let us know. And, we wish you all the support, all the luck, and blessings for your endeavors moving forward. Thank you so much.
And no, I appreciate it. And like I said, I'm honored. I know you say that, I was one of the few to reach out, if the only, but I don't know. I think these spaces are important. I think, especially as Black women, we don't have a lot of space to tell our stories. And so I can't express how grateful I am for this. And I know we didn't talk about too much, but I think we talk about enough just to set the table of, we do need spaces like this. How can we better support each other? And same goes for you. If there's ever anything that I can do, I would love to support.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, I think it's a start of a beautiful friendship.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's a good sign that, like, we just met randomly. And so it tells me that there's other people that want these services, that are dedicated to putting these services out there. With all the like terrible news and things, it's easy to be like, damn, humanity is like terrible.
Yeah.
So this just like helped me be like, oh no, like everybody is not a monster. Like there are people out here trying to do good in the world. Because you can forget there's so many bots and things, and you're on Instagram fighting with who knows who and whatever's going on, and people getting kidnapped out of their beds, and it's wild right now. But
it's wild.
Yeah, but it's nice to know that there's still like people out here that are just trying to do good and live their lives and make things positive. So definitely appreciate you for that.
Thank you.
That's it for this episode of the Beats and Balance podcast. We will see y'all next week.
Our vibes stay sacred. Our roots run deep.